let's raise your hand again. If you read the Bible this week at all or prayed at all, please raise your hand. All right, good. Seems that most people, Tayan, I don't see your hand. You didn't pray. All right, let me see that hand then next time. Okay. All right, I'm calling on the leaders to give us a little bit Kehoe this week. I'm calling you. What was last week's message about, slash something you got out of last week's message? Thank you. I heard maybe 5% of what you said, but I appreciate it. All right, so let's do announcements first today. Chris, I know you've said this multiple times, but please remind everybody about the event, social event next week. And I know there was a little confusion. If you could clarify the platform and the payment and stuff like that, please share with us. I'm very confused by those directions. Basically, I think the synopsis is if you actually are going to play next week and it's $5, we're going to pay for that, but we're not going to pay and then you not show up. So that's basically this summary. So if next week you're like, I'm going to play, just, text Chris and we'll pay for it, no problem. But, we're not going to pay and then you just not play. So that's going to be a waste of money. That's basically what it is. Thank you for that, and you'll be done before Super Bowl starts. I think at 5 or 6. I was kind of worried, but hopefully it'll be done. Okay, a couple other things. You guys had your first small group this week. I joined in on everyone's. Joshua is the only one who they haven't been able to start yet because no one can make it. But everyone else, I was on and I listened for at least some part of it. And so starting next week. For you guys, sorry, not this coming week, the following week, you guys have your next one, and we're going to start the book of Ecclesiastes. And then for the leaders, our third leaders meeting, I can't believe it's already the third one, is going to be this Tuesday, 7:30, and we're going to start with Ecclesiastes. I think it went well so far. I'm going to give the leaders some feedback on Tuesday, but I think everyone was participating, and it was good. It was very interesting to see your faces. Some of you, I haven't seen your face in like over a year, especially the younger, middle school, high school. I mean, your faces have changed as you guys go through puberty. So that was very interesting. All right, so we have a lot to cover today, so we'll get started. I don't know, the last couple of weeks, I think part of it is that I have to prepare a message. And so when you're preparing a message, you have to focus even more and try to relate it to your life. And so I've been getting a lot out of the messages, and I hope that you guys are too. I also feel that the January messages have been very big concept messages, and so, almost like transformative type messages. And so, I've been getting a lot. The title of today's message is Faith That Will Change Your Fate, and we looked at Matthew 9:18 through 26. So another raising of hands, because I want some more participation. Raise your hand if you've experienced a miracle recently, maybe in the last year or so, and you're willing to share about it. So raise your hand. First of all, let's just raise your hand if you think, man, I experienced a miracle in the last year, and miracle can be defined any way that you define it. But raise your hand if you think you've experienced some kind of miracle in the last year, and if you want to share. Okay, I see Ethel. All right, so let's see. Please go ahead. You have to speak up. You have to speak up more, please. Thank you. Let's give her a round of applause. And for those of you guys, I know a little more information. You know, her score was very good, like 97th or 8th percentile, and also, unfortunately, during that time, her uncle passed away from coronavirus, like a day or so before that day. I don't remember. So it was extra hard. I remember on her test date, and so truly, I felt like that was a miracle. So I wanted to ask that because that's what today's message is about. And lately I've been thinking I really think that starting with the pandemic, I know everyone here, it's changed everyone's life. If anyone says, man, coronavirus hasn't changed my life at all, that's not true. Everyone's life has changed for one reason or another. And during coronavirus, it's really made me think more about my faith, right? And I think today's passage really, really challenged me on how much I believe in miracles. And I will say that prior to 2020, or probably March or April of 2020, I believed in miracles, but I don't know how much I believed in miracles or how big a miracle I believed in, truly. And there are times where I'm like, if I pray, I think it could happen, but, I'm not sure, so I'm not going to put my hopes up too much. But with the coronavirus and all the things that have changed and all the things that have happened, I think it's kind of miracles am I thinking about. And not just when things are terrible, right? Not just when, oh my gosh, I have no other choice but to believe in a miracle. But things are going pretty well. I just want to believe in more of a miracle. And that's kind of the first point that we're talking about today, right? The faith of the father slash ruler to bring his daughter back to life, right? And I mean, this is a really tragic story. I think we read this like in such passing, but think about it. This ruler of the area of the church, and he's a father. His daughter died, right? And as a pediatrician, nobody here has kids. I don't have kids, but as a pediatrician, I really understand in some way. Without having kids, I think I understand as much as I can what it feels like to have a child and to have a child be sick and unfortunately have a child die, right? I've been there in the hospital when children die, and it's a very, very sad thing. I've been there when some kids are born and they pass away right away. They're born, stillborn. So to see the emotion of parents, it's hard to describe that. And it's even more because I've also been in the hospital when parents die or adults die, but it's a different type of sorrow that parents experience when a child dies. And I think it's not just the parents, but like, you know, the whole hospital. And even though, we see kids die, every time, I mean, it is such a tragedy, right? Like, I remember, I haven't cried many times in the hospital, probably only 2 times during residency, but it was when you have a sudden loss of a child, Sometimes it's an accident. This kid's literally playing, and then all of a sudden, something happens in his brain, and a blood vessel bursts, and then he dies. Literally, it's like that quick. He was a healthy 5 or 6-year-old, or other kids who have cancer. I mean, that's unfortunate. It's a longer process, but you never really understand until it happens. So this father, this ruler, was in a tough situation, right? His daughter dies, and he's like, I got to do something. I honestly don't know what his faith was like before his daughter died. But his daughter dies, and he's like, I got to ask Jesus. I'm going to kneel before Jesus and ask him to perform a miracle, right? And this was a big deal. This was a big deal because this was a ruler of the synagogue, it says. So this person was probably wealthy. This person was probably an accomplished, respected person. Jesus at that time, you have to understand, he was a son of a carpenter. He was born in a manger, which is a barn. So you really have to think about Jesus at the time in society. Not only was he poor, he was like not really respected. I mean, you couldn't even think about him as a homeless person, right? He was born in a manger. He was born in a barn. Nobody here was born in a barn, right? So in society, he was really looked down upon in that way. And yet this ruler, this father, came to Jesus and kneeled down and said, please, can you heal? Can you bring my daughter back to life? And of course, we see that he does. But that was really, it took a lot of faith for that father and that ruler to ask Jesus for that. And not only that, I was looking at a little bit of cultural stuff at the time. So it was really looked down upon for people to touch dead people at that time. So if someone was dead, it was really looked down upon, I think, unless you were kind of preparing that person to be buried. It was really looked down upon to touch a dead person. And so Jesus also had to break those barriers, those cultural barriers, those cultural norms, to go and save this, unfortunately, dead daughter. And we see, of course, the miracle takes place and the daughter is brought back to life. The second example that we see is the faith of the woman, right? And they call her the bleeding woman or the hemorrhaging woman. From what I see, when they say that, and this is going to be a little bit, maybe she's basically having a prolonged period, right? So for the girls here who are menstruating and the boys understand, a period is this monthly cycle. But in her case, she basically, I think it was like 12 years where she was constantly bleeding. And so, this was, think about that, 12 years. That's honestly as old as some of you guys are. And so for 12 years, she has this bleeding. So she has this faith. She has this belief in in Jesus' ability to perform miracles. And her faith was so strong that she just thinks, if I touch Jesus' cloak, then Jesus can heal me. Imagine that kind of faith, right? 12 years you're suffering from this disease. And it's not a disease that she could forget about. She's bleeding every single day. And she believes that if I just touch Jesus' cloak, then I'm going to be healed. And what happens? What does Jesus say? Jesus says, your faith has healed you, and he heals her, right? It doesn't say your offering healed you. It doesn't say the amount of praise you're singing healed you. It doesn't say, oh, you've been going to church every Sunday, and so I healed you. It says your faith has healed you. And this is really important too. Again, it's the faith of the father and ruler and the faith of this woman. Another thing, again, cultural norms I thought was very interesting. At that time, if you're on your cycle, if you're in your menstruating, you cannot be touched. Even your husband and stuff wasn't supposed to touch you. So the fact that Jesus, again, broke those norms, allowed this woman to touch his cloak and healed her, broke some of the cultural norms at that time too. And so, again, that made me think, like, what is my faith? And all of you guys here too, if you were in her situation, would you guys have that same faith that, man, Jesus, if I just touch your cloak, I'll be healed? Jesus, if I could just literally ask of you, you're going to heal me from this disease. And that challenges me because I think it's easy to pray when you have this kind of situation, like, oh, I hurt my ankle or something. Lord, help me heal this. Or I have this assignment coming up. I have this project. I have this job application coming up. Lord, help me do well in this. Help me do pass this thing. But how many people of you have the faith here that God can heal you from cancer? Really, if one of you had that diagnosis. Or how many of you have faith here that God can take your career over? You know, a lot of you guys are thinking about college and your careers. How many of you guys have the faith that God can really determine the future of your career? How many of you guys have the faith that God can change your spiritual problems, right? Everyone here has some kind of spiritual problem. Some of you guys, it's anger. Some of you guys, it's addiction. Some of you guys, like we talked about, is laziness. Some of you guys, it's idolatry. Everyone here has spiritual problems, including myself. And how much faith do you have? Do you believe that God can solve those spiritual problems as well and cure you of those spiritual problems as well? And the last point that was made today was how and who does this, right? How and who does this? Who performs these miracles? How do we get these miracles performed in our lives? And the third point that was made was it's only Jesus. Only Jesus is the one who can bring us to life. Only Jesus is the one that can solve us from our fate and our spiritual problems. There are a couple verses that we looked at. John 14:6. And this is a verse that I remember I think in first or second grade, I went to a Christian school, and they made me memorize this verse. I remember John 14:1-6. It was like we spent weeks trying to memorize these verses, and we had to memorize it, right? In John 14:6, it says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And this is what Jesus said, that the only way that we could experience salvation, the only way that we could experience these miracles is through Jesus Christ. And we also looked at Ephesians 2:1-5. And in that verse, it says, because of his grace and his mercy, he made us alive in Christ, even though we were dead in our transgressions. And so the only person who can bring us back to life and give us salvation, the only person who can heal us from our transgressions is Jesus. And so in conclusion, that's the big thing that I want you guys to take away from today. So two things. Number one, challenge your own faith, challenge your own belief in Christ, right? In Jesus, that he can perform miracles and that he will perform miracles in your life. You know, and it's not just, this woman and this ruler, they weren't like, Jesus, I think you can heal my daughter. I think you can heal my bleeding. No. The woman literally was like, I know that if I just touch your cloak that I can be healed. And the father literally believed that Jesus could bring his daughter back to life. Like his daughter was already dead. You know, it wasn't like, oh, she's sick, I want you to heal her. She was literally already dead. So I want you to do that. And then with that, the second point is what we talked about, is it's evangelism, right? So if you really believe that Jesus gives salvation, if you really, really believe that Jesus performs miracles, you have to tell other people about this. And it doesn't have to be, and we've talked about this last week, it may not mean that, you stand on a corner with a megaphone on the subway and preach the gospel in that way, or that, you have to, put it on your social media every day, different Bible verses and things like that. But it does mean in the people that are in your life, your friends, your family, that you are sharing the love of Jesus Christ. You're sharing the gospel message. You are sharing this good news of salvation. Because it doesn't make sense if you really believe in God and you believe in Jesus' ability to heal you and give you salvation, that you wouldn't share it with other people. And it challenged me. I have a friend in residency right now, and he's really stressed out. Residency is really stressful. He's working long hours. I mean, he started working yesterday at 8 a.m., and he's still in the hospital right now. And so he had to stay up all night. He's still working. So he's super stressed. And it's something that and we were kind of texting. I was trying to encourage him. But it is something that I challenge myself. Hey, I'm encouraging him in all these ways, but have I ever shared the gospel with him? Have I ever said, so today we're going to talk soon, and I just kind of told him, hey, I'm going to be praying for you. I'm in church right now, so I'm going to be praying for you today, and I'm going to continue to pray for you. So those are little ways that I try to really, preach the gospel and share this gospel message, is just even that little sentence, that little text that said, I'm praying for you, that plants a seed for him. So that I can continue then to share the gospel message with him. So I want you to hold on to those things as you guys go into your forum group. What we're going to do is I'm going to finish them. I'm going to pray. Then we'll have, a song that plays for about 3 minutes or so. I want everyone to pray about the message or anything else. You can read the word. I just want you to have a little time of reflection.